Hello, everybody. Mr. West here, principal at Templemore High School. This is our weekly briefing, assembly, video contact with parents and students at the school, parents at home, and students from the school, something like that. It's Friday, 26th of February, 2021, and we are reopening again. It's difficult to keep count whether it's the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time we have reopened this academic year or last academic year. It all seems to blur into one. Anyway, we're reopening, so that's really positive news, and we're thrilled and really excited about welcoming back students to the school, and hopefully we get back to some sense of normal. Okay, so I'm going to give you some very broad outlines about how that might look, and the detail will all follow next week. So be clear. I'm just giving you the draft version, but all of this could change. It could change for a variety of reasons, which I'll explain in a second. Right, before we get into the detail about reopening, I'm just going to give you some general messages that are relevant to some of you. The first one is, I just want to promote the Year 11 Parental Teacher or Parent Teacher Consultation, Parents Evening, which is on Monday. Okay, you can book appointments on the Parents Evening booking system as normal. And it will be done virtually, obviously via video on Monday. And it's a really good opportunity for parents to ask questions of teachers and talk about how your child and students will be supported in terms of assessments leading up to May into June, when we have to do the gradings, which again I will come on to shortly. So please sign up for that. I think it's a great opportunity. And in fact, it's something that I think if it's popular, I think we could continue in the future, because it kind of works around family commitments, and obviously parents that work or work late or have got other commitments and things. It could be quite a useful tool in the future. So can you please look out for that? The second general point I want to make today is just a thank you, really. Miss Yazine's Year 9 Geography class, thank you for your excellent participation in live lessons recently. And also well done to George. And Max W for their excellent answers in Year 11 Geography. So some positive news there. Right, we'll talk a little bit about gradings then now. I'll do gradings and then we'll talk about reopening. So this is for Year 11 and Year 13s, but it might be relevant to some of the others because we don't know what's going to come in the future. So there's a tremendous amount of work going on with the staff at the school at the minute to try and work out and ascertain how the gradings will be formulated this year in a similar way to kind of last year. So last year they had CAGs, which were centre assessed grades. This year, we haven't got a name for it this year, but it's going to be something similar. So at the minute, Ofqual, okay, they're the regulators, okay, they're the people that can oversee the standards of qualifications in this country. So they've sent out a bunch of information for leaders and parents and teachers and for students to kind of look at. And in that work, we've got to try and work out about how we don't show bias towards some children over other children, how we make sure that the gradings are fair, to make sure that we've got robust, meaning we've got really rock solid, appropriate and professional standards in terms of the work that we complete as teachers and leaders to make sure we get the right grades. And then that has to be quality assured and checked by people. And then it all comes to me, just like last year, and I have to check all of those qualifications for each of you individually, and I have to personally sign them off as an accurate record of your current attainment. And what I mean by current attainment is about what you know about what you've learned so far, not a prediction for the future, not about what you might have done in terms of an examination if you're going to do it in the future. It's just going to be about what you've learned so far. So you'll have read, some of you, that is going to be a combination of work you've done in class. It'll be a combination of mock results that you might have done. It might be other pieces of work that you've completed. It might have been work that you've done during remote learning, and it might be part of some form of assessment that might be done in school. They talk about many exams, etc. But they won't be exams as you recognise them. It's unlikely you'll be sitting in an exam hall in silence working through those things. We might do that. We'll have to wait for the details, but they have not been published yet. We're hoping that will come out before Easter, but it may well be that it's after Easter when we've got the detail. But again, I'll make sure you all know exactly what's expected of you. The assessments that probably will take place will be in lessons, and there may be some kind of exam papers, but a lot of you have been doing those exam papers anyway, so it wouldn't be a huge departure. The exam papers are going to be familiar to you. They're not going to be anything that you haven't covered already. Okay, we're not allowed to test anything you haven't done yet, so that's a real benefit for you. We've also got to do, as our piece of work, we've got to look at you as two separate cohorts, that's 11 and 13, and compare you to previous years about the results from, not necessarily last year, because obviously we did something similar, but cohorts in 2017, 18 and 19. And that's what we did last year as well. So we're going to look at that and compare you to how children and students have performed in this school in previous years. Now, the results in the last few years have been pretty strong. So, we're in a good position really. And hopefully you have worked hard enough to produce enough evidence for me to be satisfied to sign off and say, yes, you have done sufficient amount of work to be awarded a particular grade. And then I have to sign off as well to make sure that you are ready for the next stage in your learning journey. So if you're in year 13, I have to be confident that I can sign you off and you'll be ready for university, apprenticeships or employment. And if you're in year 11, I have to be confident that you've done a sufficient amount of work so I can sign you off so you can go on to post-16 apprenticeships, work-based training, whatever it might be, okay? But there's a very clear guidance for me to say, is this child or this student ready for the next stage? So please make sure you work with teachers to provide that evidence that you've worked hard enough to be awarded a particular grade. And for parents, if you are disappointed or not happy about your particular grade, you will have the chance to appeal those grades, but you'll appeal to the examination board, not necessarily the school. Last year, parents did appeal to the school. There's a slight change there. More details about that will come out when I've got them. Okay, should we move on to reopening? So we're going to start with testing. All right. Now, we sent out a message via the app, and the message basically says, do you want to give consent for your child to take part in COVID-19 or lateral flow testing? So it's a lateral flow test. Now, I've had 2 of these per week since January, okay? They're not the most pleasant thing in the world, but they're all right. We get used to them quite quickly. And actually, it gives you peace of mind that things are okay. So as I say, I've had them twice a week since January. They're certainly not painful, put it that way, that's for sure. So those tests, excuse me, those tests will take place in school. And you initially have 3 tests if you've signed up for that. So far, between 500 and 600 students have signed up so far. Now, there's a deadline for signing up for that if you're interested in that, and that'll be 9 a.m. on Monday. So again, if you're interested, please put your name forward. If not, that's absolutely fine. It is not compulsory. You will still be welcome back to school alongside everybody else. Now, in order for us to administer and oversee these tests, these 3 initial tests, it's a significant logistical challenge, as you can imagine. So it means we're going to have to have a staggered reopening of the school. So I'm going to give you the broad outline of when this might be, and then I'll confirm this next week in writing to you. So years 11, 12 and 13, at this point, you will be coming in on Monday the 8th of March for a test. Once you've had your test, you go back home. If you get a negative result, which will be pinged back through to you, okay? If you get a negative result, you are welcome into school on the 9th. So that's the Tuesday, and you'll go back to normal lessons, okay? You will have a second test on the 11th of March and a third test on the 16th of March. At that point, you've had your 3 tests. So 11, 12 and 13, you'll just be taken out of lessons and you'll go down, get the test just like you'll have done when you've had vaccinations, and you go back to lessons if you're negative. If you're positive, you stay at home and you have the normal isolation period. And that goes along with close contacts as well. But again, I'll go into more detail about that next week. After that time, the plan is that you'll be given a set of tests to be administered, self-administered at home. So you'll be encouraged to take 2 tests a week, which you'll do at home. You'll get a result. If you're negative, you come back into school. And that's how it'll work. Okay, so you'll only have 3 tests in school, just so you understand how to do it. But you will have to administer them yourself. My staff are here. As I say, we've got a nice protocol. We've got key workers taking tests. We've got staff taking tests. So we've got a really good program here. You'll have that test. We'll show you how to use it. You'll have to do it yourself. We'll show you how to use it. Make sure you supervise. Make sure you're comfortable with it. And then you'll do them at home. Years 7 and 10. Years 7 and 10, it's likely at this point you'll come in on Tuesday the 9th. Take your test, go home, come back on the 10th, and then you're back to normal lessons. On the 10th, you have that test. on the 10th, you'll come back into lessons. On the 12th, you have your second test. And on the 17th, you have your third test. Okay? And then you'll do your testing at home. Years 8 and 9, you will come in on the 10th of March for your test. You'll go home. If you're negative, you come back in on the 11th for normal lessons. And then you have your second test on the 15th and the third test on the 18th. This will all come out in writing next week, but you've got a broad outline. Now, what might change those dates might be that if we have to do 1,000 students, then, and obviously hundreds of staff, we couldn't do that. So we might have to elongate or lengthen the period of time of the staggering of return, just because we can only do 260 tests a day. That's just all we can manage, all right? So we'll see what happens in the coming days, but we'll let you know. But to reassure you, if you do not want to have tests, that's fine. You will come in on your designated day, and that's fine, no problem at all. No one's forcing anyone to take a test. Right. Given all of that, there'll be lots of disruption, as you can imagine. So I'm just going to ask for patience from students and from parents as we get through those first few days. You'll appreciate we are a school, we're not a testing centre, so we're going to do our very, very best. But it means that if you're having a test on a particular day, there might not be live lessons for you when you go home, but you'll have your remote learning offer, there'll be blended learning there, there'll be learning on class charts, etc. And teachers will direct you accordingly, but you might not get your live lessons, okay? That's just how it'll work. Right. Should we talk about face coverings? Okay, this is a very controversial point, as it has been since the beginning of the pandemic, and certainly from September onwards. Now, I sent out a letter to homes this week that children should wear face coverings in classrooms in keeping with the guidance that was published. Now, since then, the guidance has been open to interpretation, and there's been further comments made by the Secretary of State in Parliament, who said that face coverings were mandatory or compulsory, or they must be worn in lessons. And the Schools Minister then contradicting that and saying that they were highly recommended but not compulsory. So let me be absolutely clear. Face coverings, face masks, whatever you want to call them, will still be mandatory. So they will still be, it will still be necessary. You must wear them on corridors and in social spaces. In terms of classrooms, at the moment, you should wear a face covering. Now, I am taking advice on this. I'm seeking out further guidance about what that might look like in classrooms. I've had a number of parents who are very unhappy about face coverings in classrooms, and I fully appreciate your point of view. And I've had parents who are thrilled that children are wearing face coverings in classrooms. And I've had many parents since September wanting that to take place. So I have to strike the balance between the middle about what we do and don't do. Okay, so I may review this in the coming days once I've taken further advice, and I'll give you some clear guidance next week about how that might look. But as I say, it's highly recommended. That's what the wording says, even though it's open to interpretation. Okay, so we'll see what happens next week once I've got some further guidance. But just to be clear, if a child chooses not to wear a face mask in lessons, or a parent does not consent to that in lessons, then no child will be disadvantaged. Those children will be welcome into school. They'll be allowed to attend lessons, and they will not be sanctioned or punished for not wearing a mask. Okay. However, there will be an expectation that you wear them on the corridors and in social spaces, because that is mandatory. And obviously, we have actions to take in place if children choose not to follow my rules. Okay. Right. That's it for now. Hopefully in due course we'll talk to you about summer schools and catch up and things like that, but there's no details as how that will look. And those parents have got children coming up in year 6 currently who are going to come to us in September. We're working hard in the background in terms of transition to make sure they have as good an experience in the summer term as possible, and hopefully we can do some actual visits to school, because initially thought we might be virtual. So hopefully we can do that. It'll be in a similar fashion to what we've done in the past, where we've had a transition fortnight. But again, details to follow. Right, that's it for now. Please look out for communications during the week about all of these matters. And then I'll have a briefing again next week, and I'll go through a summary exactly of what the expectations will be when you return to school. Okay, so in the meantime, please enjoy the sunshine. Thanks for your attention this week, and all the best to all of you. Bye-bye.